Hi, my name is Jim Green. I'm a gunsmith. The name of my shop is Denny's Gunworks in Harrington, Maine. Today's rifle we're going to disassemble for a good cleaning is an original model 1886 Winchester. This is one of John Browning's first designs and lever actions for the Winchester Company. This thing is a radical departure from anything Winchester had before. Even though externally it looks similar to the other Winchesters because it's a lever action repeater, this thing actually has locking blocks, and it was one of the first guns that could handle the government 4570 cartridge. Now before we get started on disassembling, just like any other rifle, we're going to open it up. We're going to take a look in the chamber, make sure the rifle's empty. This particular rifle happens to be chambered for 4082 Winchester. Now, for the sake of time, we're not going to disassemble the front end of this rifle. This is one part that Winchester kept from the 1873 and the 1876 rifles. The way you would remove the magazine tube, and it's going to be in another video, on the bottom down here, there's going to be a screw. You'll remove that screw. The end cap will come out. The spring will come out. Okay? You're going to have a screw here and a screw here. You remove those, and the cap will come forward. And then this little pin right inside here. If you drive that pin out, then you can grab the tube, slide the magazine tube forward, and then your front handguard will come off. But we're not going to do that for the sake of time. We're going to start with this rifle here on the inside with the guts. Now, first thing you're going to do is remove the buttstock. We're going to start with this little screw right down here. And by the way, this serial number on this rifle is 4-digit. And I checked the serial number. This rifle was made actually early 1887. We're going to remove the second screw here. Now we can just simply pull the buttstock off and set it off to the side. Now the next part I'm going to look for, well, this particular gun happens to be missing that part. I never noticed that. Normally there would be what they call a carrier stop and a screw that goes into this place right here. It's a little rounded piece with a long leg that goes up inside, and it acts as a carrier stop. This particular rifle seems to be missing that, but you'll remove that next. So, since that's missing, let's just move right on along. We'll go ahead and cock the rifle. And on the underside down here, there's a little set screw that puts tension on the hammer spring. So let's remove that screw. Get a better screwdriver than that. I'm just going to remove it completely and get it out of the way. Okay, once that screw's out of the way, I'm going to release the tension on the spring. Use a small brass punch. Because what we've got to do is get this spring out of that little piece right there. So let's knock that spring out. I like using the brass punches for this because it does not mar the metal. Doesn't scratch it. What's important on these springs is you don't scratch a spring because that creates a weak spot. You'll notice that it's got a pair of little hooks. It'll fit on the stirrup in the back of the hammer, which I'll show you in a little bit. Okay. Now, let's flip the gun over. You'll see right here what looks to be a screw. This is actually not a screw. So if you get a screwdriver on it and turn it, trying to get that loose, it's not going to come out and it's going to be a pain in the butt. Actually, that's a split pin in a bushing. So what we'll do is just simply tap that loose. Get that out. See what I'm saying about it being a split pin and not a screw? You still have a bushing in here. So let's go ahead and very carefully wrong side. There we go. And here's your little bushing and your split pin together. That's how they'll go back together. Now, once you have that done, you're going to be able to remove the locking block off of this side. but you're not going to be able to remove the locking block on this side here because we still have this cover in place. And I'll show you why. Let's take this cover off. Now once you got that cover off, you'll see a little arm right in here. Now what happens is that locking block on this side hooks on this arm. So what you want to do is pull that arm down, then you can remove your locking block on this side. Because you'll see right here, this part of the arm will actually engage in this slot right there. Now that these locking blocks are out of the way, let's flip him back over and remove the bottom tang. This one single screw is the pivot point for the hammer and also holds the carrier in place inside. And acts as a pivot point for the carrier or the cartridge lifter and also holds the tang in place. John Moses Browning was a genius. I mean, this is so complex mechanically but so simple. So we'll remove that. Go ahead and pull your tang back and out of the way. Take the hammer out the bottom of the gun. Remember what I mentioned earlier about how that hammer spring fits on there? Just like this. So let's set that off to the side. Now, grab your lever. You can pull it all the way back. Notice how I pushed down and got the carrier backed up a little bit. Once you have the carrier pulled out of the gun like this, you just simply work it out of the bottom just like that. Now this part right here, rotate that back and that just pops out. There's only a single little hook on this side that fits in that slot. Now this other one on this opposite end actually fits into this hole right up in here. Let me point to it. Now that you got the gun dismantled to this point here, let's go ahead and drive this little pin out. And we'll remove that. This is how you get your, this is called the finger lever. This is how you'll remove the finger lever from the gun. Lift off your bolt. Pull your finger lever out the bottom. And there's a couple other odds and ends that you can remove, but since this is just going to be a good little strip and clean, I wouldn't worry about it. You'll see a little lever that goes up and down right here, and this screw holds that in place. I'd just leave it there. The other screw that you don't want to remove, unless you absolutely have to, so you'll have to probably clean some of these little screw head slots out. This little screw here holds your cartridge guide in place. Leave that alone too. Basically what you've done is just strip this gun down for a good cleaning. You can take the firing pin out the back. And I'm going to say leave the extractor claw in unless you absolutely have to remove it if it's broken. You can drive this pin out and remove that. There's a couple other little odds and ends you can take out. This is going to be your ejector. Let's leave that in place. You got an ejector and a collar. You don't want to mess with that either because there's a certain way that goes in. And I'm not teaching Gunsmithing 101, I just want to keep you out of trouble. Now, I'm not going to reassemble this gun on the video, but there are a couple things I need to tell you about when you go to reassemble this rifle. What I'm going to suggest you should do for reassembly, let me move this out of the way so we can get it on video. When you go to put this rifle back together, all right, the way you want to put this piece back in, remember how I said you got a little tip on that? Come in from the bottom, sideways like this, and turn it until it locks into that slot. Then you can raise it up. Okay, now we've got that part. Now, the way this linkage hooks into the finger lever, whoop, about to lose it there. On this other side, this will fit just like this. Now the way it's been easiest for me to put these rifles back together, because you notice how the carrier won't clear the dadgum finger lever, right? So what you want to do is put this together just like this right here before you put this back inside the gun. You almost need 3 hands with this thing. Here we go. I've always found it easiest for me when I'm putting these rifles here back together, the Model 1886s. Put this part of it together first. Then what you'll do is slide your bolt back into place. Alright, push that little pivot lever right there up and out of the way. Get your carrier started back in the underside of the gun. Just like this. Then put your pin back in place for the lever. Because if you try to wrestle that thing and hook that over with the bolt and the lever back in the gun, you're going to find it's going to be quite a difficult task, to say the least. Let's go ahead and drive that pin back in there. Make sure you got that pin driven in until she's flush. Then you just start sliding everything back inside, just like this. That much of it right there is about the only trick I can tell you that you're going to need to know. That's going to be really important. Okay, and you get your carrier and everything else lined up. Take your hammer, push the bolt closed, then stick your hammer back in from the bottom to the top. Oops, I had to turn it over because the screw comes in from this side. Before you do that, though, you want to make sure that you get everything else lined up. I just wanted to get that lined up right there. Or you can use even one of these larger pins to make sure everything's lined up. But then you go ahead and push that little stirrup out of the way from the hammer. Then you can slide your tang back in. Get your carrier all lined up. But like I said, I'm not going to go through the entire process of reassembly, but I'm just showing you a trick on how to get all these parts right here back in together without having to wrestle or cuss them into place. So you don't want to forget your firing pin and all this other stuff either. But I just wanted to show you how that goes back together. And like I said, don't forget your firing pin and don't forget your other parts. Everything else, all these locking blocks and everything goes back in place the same way they came out. And that's an 1886 Winchester lever action. Also keep in mind that the 1892 Winchester is going to disassemble pretty much about the same way this 1886 does. Basically, the 1892 Winchester is a downscaled version of the 1886. This one's in rifle cartridges, the 1892 is in pistol cartridges. Browning did something similar to that when he came out with the Browning 1919 machine gun in .30-06. U.S. military decided they needed something larger, so he scaled up the 1919 and he scaled up the .30-06 cartridge, and that's how he came out with the M2 Browning in .50 caliber BMG. Like I said, John Browning was a pretty smart cookie. Thank you for watching this latest Gunworks video. Down East Gunworks is a full-service fire and repair service for all your long guns and handguns that includes a high-tech machine shop for tooling obsolete parts. Old or new, if you have a firearm that needs attention, Gunworks can probably fix it, solve it, coat it, and make it work. If you're living in Down East Maine, come by the shop for a visit. We're located on Route 1 in Harrington. If you live elsewhere, you can reach us by going to the website www.downeastgunworks.com or call the shop at area code 207-483-2175. If you found this video helpful or interesting, please leave me a comment and rate the video. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll always know when I've posted something new. And thanks again for watching.